Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Let's get it going. Welcome back to another video on the channel. You guys, you're gonna have to excuse my voice, my eyes, my everything, guys. I'm actually sick. I took the day off from work today, which it's the first time I've done that in probably, it's actually the first time I've ever done this in the 9 months I've been there. I've used up my E-days. Those are kind of like emergency days, which I guess you're supposed to use as sick days, but I just took them off when I was too burnt out. But the official first sick day today, I never get sick. I'm using one of those Halls, like the lozenges, and yeah. So the benefit of that is that I could rest, I could make a video. I actually just woke up from like a 4-hour nap, guys. I don't know if this is spiritual warfare. I mean, the reality is I got this most likely while evangelizing last Monday. You know, you guys are going up against some pretty like wicked individuals, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But you know, guys will be there smoking cigs while talking. You're kind of just inhaling it, secondhand smoke. There's a lot of weed. There's guys doing this, that. I don't know if there's witchcraft. Like I went up against some like pro-choice or feminist, which by the way, I'm actually making a new sign. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, my ministry Christ developed, I have a big sign that says Jesus saves if you're a liar, thief, fornicator, porn watcher, you know, LGBTQ supporter, atheist, secular. I tweaked it up a little bit to actually, wow, it kind of speaks to this video. I'm targeting Muslims a little bit more. So instead of atheist, secular, I put Muslim / atheist, and then I actually added in feminist and baby killer. I've been really getting into abortion and you know, being an abolitionist, not pro-life, but an abolitionist, guys. There's actually a very big difference. The pro-life movement actually does not want to abolish abortion. They just kind of want to limit, you know, when it's being done. But as abolitionists, who are Christ-fearing men, just like they did in the 1800s, guys, when these individuals want to abolish it. They don't want to say, oh, you know, you can own a slave up to this age or this age, or kind of take it back. No, they say we want it gone. And that's actually, guys, William Wilberforce is one of the greatest men who did this. This is how they abolished slavery in the early 1800s. Granted, I still have a lot to learn on this topic, but I'm very interested in it. You guys know I'm always interested in Islam. Kind of a myriad of topics that God is really just this is what, just before we get into this video, this is how God works within myself and you guys. He pushes you, right? Again, John 6:44, he lures you towards certain topics, your purpose, your calling, whether that's apologetics, maybe it's certain realms. You know, everyone's going to be different. We're going to have our different styles. But for me, I'm just called to do this, to defend the West, to stand up for Christ, and it's myriad of forms. So with that, guys, in today's video, again, excuse my raspy voice, we're speaking of, and I hope the audio is okay. I don't normally record it this time. The highway's a little loud. Guys, we are speaking of Islam taking over the West. Now, Islam, you guys know my take on it. It's cancer. It is a horrible religion. The unfortunate reality is that the majority of Muslims don't actually study their Quran, and this is factual. You can ask Muslims. Only about 15% of Muslims here in the West actually understand Arabic, but even if they did know Arabic, it's kind of like Catholicism. You know, if you guys have ever been to a Catholic church or spoken to Catholics, very few of them actually read the Bible. What they do is they go to their mosque, or they go to their church if it's a Catholic, and they'll just listen to the leader and essentially just kind of parrot everything back based on what the leader says to them. So for Muslims, these are known as their Dawah script, right? Muslims it's really sad because I study Islam intensively. I study the Hadiths, I study the Quran, I have a Quran, and when I bring up these topics, it's very rare that they've heard it before. They really don't know how to answer it, unless it's kind of like their Dawah script, which is, you know, Jesus never claimed to be God, Jesus isn't God, you know, he's just a prophet. Like these very kind of like basic things that their leaders, their sheikhs, their imams tell them. If you kind of veer off a little bit, right, outside just the norm, they really don't know. And I find myself many times actually teaching Muslims their own religion. And I'm not saying this, I want to make this very clear, guys. I'm not saying this out of like arrogance or because I hate them. Actually, I love Muslims. As Christian men, we're supposed to love others. This is the only commandment Christ has given us: love others as we want to be loved, right? So I love Muslims, but we really do have to wake them up from their satanic religion. And many Muslims now globally, worldwide, actually are waking up, guys. What you need to understand, I'm kind of speaking of a ton of things in this video, just getting you guys ready, really, for apologetics with Islam, because it's taken over the West. It's actually too late now, guys, at this point. We need to start a modern crusade. I truly believe that. And again, I'm not saying we're going to hurt any of them. If you guys don't know what the actual crusades were, it's when, this is actually a good thing with the Catholics, they essentially said, you know, kick rocks to the Muslims because Islam spread throughout the entire world, and we actually all should be Muslim right now. You watching this, if you live in the West, Europe, Canada, the States, you actually should be a Muslim. Your mom should be wearing a hijab. You should be praying 5 times a day. if it wasn't for the Crusades that fought back and said, you guys have enslaved too many of our people, kick rocks. And that's how Islam spread, guys. Like I told you, it's a bad religion. It's spread through the sword. Chapter 9 of the Quran is the last main chapter of the Quran, which abrogates. This is very important, guys. And if Muslims in the comments would like to debate, let me know. I would gladly love to chat with you or explain your own religion to you if you'd like. So there's something called abrogation, okay? So how Islam spread, or how it worked, guys, is Muhammad's life unfolded in three main ways, okay? This is when he was a beginning, just a merchant. He was essentially a nobody. He didn't have any followers. He was gaining the revelations from Allah. No one was listening to him. They were like, guy, you're kind of crazy. And this is when he started in Mecca. He actually later on moved to Medina. And once he moved to Medina, he started to gain following. He started to gain notoriety. He started to have other individuals slowly convert to Islam. And this is where you begin to see his teachings, or the Quran, really change. Like I said, guys, there's something called abrogation. So in the earlier chapters of the Quran, like chapter 4, this is what most Muslims, probably even watching this, will comment. They'll be like, oh, David, there's no compulsion in religion. Meaning, you have your religion, I have mine. We don't have to force you. Well, that was revealed to Muhammad when he was back in Mecca, when he was much more peaceful, when he didn't have a big influence. So he actually could, you have to understand this, guys, Muhammad was actually a very deceitful, sneaky man. And he changed his teachings or his revelations based on how influential he was. So when he was not very influential, he would say, oh yeah, don't go attack, your religion to you, my religion to myself. The second phase is now when he started to gain some following. This is when the Quran, it moves forward, and again, it abrogates, which means it overwrites, right? This is when the Quran would say things like, only fight in defense, right? So a lot of Muslims, when you bring up context of war, they'll always parrot the same thing. It was just in defense, it was just in defense. And that argument actually doesn't make sense, because if you study the history of Islam, it didn't spread and get to Europe through defense, right? So already that falls apart. But that's what they're referring to, the kind of middle part of Muhammad's life, where he was gaining notoriety, he was gaining influence, but he wasn't influential enough where he could bring it to phase 3. Phase 3 of Islam is where it actually ended off, because this is, where he died, and this is his essentially his last parting words. This is in chapter 9 of the Quran, which is the last main chapter of the Quran, which abrogates, meaning overwrites, all the more previous peaceful chapters. This is what Muslims won't tell you, and it's really because they just don't know. Again, most Muslims do not know their own religion, and it's because their imams and their leaders lie to them. They lie to them. They know, but if they were to tell them the truth, Muslims would not actually be Muslim. They would leave. So chapter 9, guys, of the Quran is the last main chapter. And basically what this says is kill or convert the world. This is where you find the most violent passages, guys, 929, 95, 9111. You can also look at the Hadiths at this time, narrations of what individuals would say Muhammad said. I'm actually going to read some of these verses to you guys right here. And again, a lot of Muslims will say, oh, this was in the context of them defending themselves, which is just, it's not the truth, guys. If you read the context, it's not. All right, guys, here we go. Quran 929, Surah 929. Fight those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and his messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, aka us, Christians and Jews, until they pay jizya, which is a tax. And what you guys forget is that once you accept this tax and pay it, you're now a second-class citizen. So you're not the same class citizen as them, but they're not going to tell you this. You are seen as a doormat, essentially. You are a second-class citizen. Let me make that very clear. Until they pay jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. 929, there is no context of defense. That is a complete offensive attack. There are more hadiths, guys. Here we go. Here's another hadith, guys. Hadiths are narrations. These are very important. These are narrations of what Muhammad would say. Allah's apostle, right, Muhammad said, I have been ordered to fight the people, us, the world, till they say none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. This is the bane of Islam, guys. Like I said, it's made very clear, because if you search up the history of how Islam spread, that's how it spread. It was not spread in defense. It was an offensive mission. This is how they took over major parts of the world, and that's how it came to Europe, and it's why it's now ruining the West. Guys, what I need to make very clear is how Islam is spreading and working now in the West, in Canada, and the United States. It's exactly how Muhammad ordered them. You start off small. They're gaining little tiny influence. There's not a ton of Muslims here right now, but as they grow, they're going to change everything, and their imams will not tell them this, or the Muslims will not tell you guys this. They're starting off small. They're going to be peaceful. I have my religion, you have yours. I would never force it on you. Never. Don't worry about that. But the second they hit, supposedly it's around 10% in capacity. The second, like Muhammad, because they're all deceitful guys, they gain that bit of notoriety. They gain that influence. They have a decent amount of numbers. And I would love Muslims to tell the truth and comment this below. They're killing or converting the entire world. You and I are all going to have to pay jizya. We're all going to have to become Muslim, or we're going to be kicked out. Once Sharia law is in place, which it is in some places in the UK, which is not safe. If I was to go to certain places in the UK, which is a Christian country or founded on the backbones of Judeo-Christian values, and I was to preach the gospel, I am almost positive I'd get beaten up, and police would probably do very little to nothing of it. I can guarantee you this, if I was in the Middle East, I'd be killed. I promise you that. If I was in the Middle East and I started to preach the gospel, depending where I was, I'd either be killed, imprisoned, or deported. But Muslims who come here to Canada, if they want to preach their religion, no problem. We're going to build more mosques for you. They're protected, guys. I really need to make this video. I know it's dark, but I felt compelled to make this to wake you guys up. Islam is here. It's not going to leave. And the only way for it to leave, guys, is for us as Christian men to stand up and start a crusade and to say no and to really learn how Islam works. I need you guys to start studying, study apologetics, study Sam Shamoon, David Wood, God Logic, what else? Sierra International, Apostate Prophet. Some amazing YouTubers online. Understand how to defend the Christian faith, guys, because we are in the last days here, and Muslims, Islam, I love Muslims, but Islam will take over you. They're going to take over your family. They're going to take over your home territory, guys. The Bible here in Canada, they're trying to absolutely abolish it. Meanwhile, they're giving more and more rights to Muslims every single day. I just saw something that said, like, it was like halal interest or something like that, where essentially they now don't have to pay interest, right? So if they want to get a mortgage or a property, the bank's going to choose them over you. And anyways, guys, this is all a nefarious agenda by the elites. I really don't even blame Muslims themselves because, one, the majority of them don't know their own religion, and number two, they don't know how they're being used as a pawn. They're using Islam to ruin the West and to kill Christians, to ruin Christ. The idea of Christ, they want it gone. They want it destroyed because Christ is the only thing that's truly going to save individuals. Islam doesn't save, so elites are propagating that as hard as they possibly can. I'm sure you guys have seen what happened with Emmanuel Mari, right, with the Muslim stab. That's a perfect example too. That's a perfect example. That's how Islam works, guys. The Muslim himself screamed multiple times, Allah Akbar, while he was killing him. It was confirmed he was Muslim. Afterwards, he literally made it clear this wouldn't have happened if he didn't offend my prophet. That's the bane of Islam, guys. It is a kill or convert. If you talk bad about their religion, you're no bueno. So, I mean, the reason I'm saying this now is because I have the freedom to say this, but that freedom I know is leaving every single day. If I was to wait a couple years' time, I probably wouldn't be able to say this. I'm dead serious, man. In our own country, you're gonna have to watch what you say with your own religion. So this is what's happening, guys. Islam is taking over. It's ruining the West, and that is the ultimate goal. It is not a religion of peace. I study the Quran, I study the Hadiths, I know Islam very well, and I continue to study it, and it is the worst thing that can happen to Christians, Jews, or unbelievers. The worst thing that can happen. And you need to fight back. You need to expose it. You need to wake up your fellow Muslim brother. You need to start posting stories. You're going to be called an Islamophobe. You're going to, they've got their attacks, which really they don't have any attacks, but they're going to start calling you names, but you need to endure, man. Christ makes this very clear, guys. We have to speak the truth, spread the gospel to all nations, to all creation. Sorry, I'm a little kind of loopy, guys. I'm on a lot of kind of medicine, NyQuil, things like that. But that's the reality. I love you, Muslims. I want to make that very clear. But Islam is a horrible religion. You really need to study it. And you have to understand, guys, to finish it here, most Muslims will not leave Islam because they've been born into it. And to leave, search up Nabil Qureshi, to leave is like to essentially, give up their entire family. So I'm very empathetic towards them. But no matter what, if you want to go to heaven, you need to leave it. And I will not stand while my country is being taken over. I can't. Because on the day of judgment, when God looks at me and he says, what did you do to spread my word? I'll say, I did what I could. Even if I get killed, I did what I could. Unlike the majority of you guys, unfortunately, who are being cowards and you're not doing anything. And you know this is the truth. Too much evidence is coming out. You're seeing it in front of your eyes. You have to stop believing the lies. And I'll finish it here with the famous quote, without lies, Islam dies. Have an amazing day. Share this video with anybody who needs to see it. I love you Muslims, but you need to leave Islam. And it's time for us to start a modern day crusade by saying no to what's being pushed. God bless. Check your next video. Till then, much love. Peace.